Before we step past the final gate, hit subscribe, drop a like, and tell us in the comments what you think freedom really means after years inside a place like Pelican Bay. The gate does not open because a man feels ready. It opens only when the system says every number matches, every signature is in place, every instruction has been given, and every remaining piece of custody has been transferred from the prison wall to the outside world. Inside Pelican Bay, freedom begins long before daylight reaches the yard. It begins in files and case records, in release dates calculated months or years earlier, in court orders, parole conditions, identification checks, and small administrative decisions most people will never see. To the outside world, release looks like a single moment. A door opens, a man walks out, a family waits, a road leads away from the prison. But inside a maximum security institution, release is not a moment. It is a process of control. Pelican Bay State Prison sits in the far northwest corner of California, near Crescent City, close to the Oregon border, surrounded by forest, fog, ocean air, and distance. It was built to hold men the state considered difficult to manage, dangerous, or deeply embedded in the prison system. For decades, its name carried a specific weight. It was known for high-security custody, strict movement, sealed doors, controlled routines, and the long shadow of its former security housing unit. For some men, Pelican Bay was not just a place they served time. It became the entire shape of time itself. A day inside the prison is built around permission. Permission to move, permission to shower, permission to receive property, permission to use a phone, permission to stand in line, permission to leave a housing unit. Even small acts are filtered through routine, security, staffing, paperwork, and count. Nothing happens simply because someone wants it to happen. So when a release date arrives, the pressure does not disappear. It changes form. In the final hours, the man being released may already know that his body is free before his mind believes it. He may have counted down the days, marked them silently, refused to talk about them too much, or avoided hope because hope can be dangerous in prison. A delayed paper, a changed classification, a court issue, a disciplinary report, a missing document, or an unresolved hold can turn certainty into waiting. In prison, even freedom can feel conditional until the final door shuts behind you. The morning begins like every other morning. Steel doors, count, officers moving through the unit, voices low, keys, radios, the dull institutional rhythm of a place designed not to hurry. Nothing about the building changes because one man is scheduled to leave. The prison does not become softer. The walls do not acknowledge the meaning of the date. The same rules apply until the final minute. This is one of the first hidden truths of release. A man may be hours away from the outside world, but inside the prison, he is still an inmate. He is still counted, still watched, still moved under procedure, still subject to orders. The release process does not erase custody, it completes it. Some men leave from general population, others leave after years shaped by more restrictive custody. Pelican Bay's history makes that distinction important. The prison became nationally known because of conditions connected to long-term isolation, and the hunger strikes of 2011 and 2013 drew attention far beyond California. Those protests were tied to men held for long periods in solitary-style environments, and to broader questions about classification, gang validation, and the psychological cost of extreme confinement. That history does not vanish when a man is released. If he has spent years inside tight routines, his final morning may feel less like celebration and more like exposure. The cell has been narrow, controlled, predictable. The outside world is wide, fast, and full of choices. Prison removes choice so completely that choice itself can become overwhelming. What to wear, where to sit, what to eat, how to speak to someone who is not giving an order, how to walk through a crowd without scanning every movement, how to sleep without a count, a door, a voice, or the sound of keys nearby. For the people waiting outside, release can look like the end of punishment. For the person leaving, it can feel like the beginning of another test. Before he reaches the gate, there are steps. Property must be gathered, prison-issued items must be returned, personal belongings may be checked and packed, paperwork has to be reviewed, identification has to be confirmed, instructions have to be given. If supervision is required, the reporting conditions matter immediately. A person may be told where to report, when to report, what rules apply, what contact is allowed, what restrictions remain, and what happens if those instructions are missed. The most important part of release may not be the gate. It may be the packet of papers in his hand. Those papers carry the next version of custody: parole terms, community supervision requirements, appointment dates, transportation arrangements, medication information if applicable, identification documents if available, legal instructions. Sometimes the language is plain, sometimes it feels bureaucratic, but every page can matter. A missed appointment can become a violation. A misunderstood condition can become a return path. A small mistake outside can become a big problem inside. This is the part outsiders rarely imagine. Freedom from prison does not always mean freedom from the system. By the time a man is called for processing, the unit may react quietly. In prison, leaving can create complicated emotions. Some men congratulate him. Some say nothing. Some watch with envy. Some have seen people leave and come back. Some do not allow themselves to care. In a place built around survival, hope is not always shared out loud. There is also another tension. The man leaving must not draw too much attention. A release date can make someone visible. Property changes hands. Conversations shift. Goodbyes happen carefully. Nothing dramatic needs to occur for the atmosphere to tighten. Prison culture teaches people to manage emotion, because emotion can be read as weakness, disrespect, fear, pride, or vulnerability. So, the final hours may look strangely calm. A man folds what little he owns. He checks letters. He keeps old paperwork he may never read again. He holds onto addresses, phone numbers, photographs, maybe a worn document that proves some connection to a life beyond concrete. The items are ordinary, but inside a prison they carry weight. They are proof that the outside still exists. And still, the system moves at its own pace. A release can be delayed by waiting for staff, waiting for records, waiting for transport, waiting for the right office to complete the right step, waiting for a final clearance, waiting for a process that has no emotional connection to the person inside it. That waiting can be the hardest part, because in those hours, the mind begins to run ahead. It imagines the road, the first meal, the first hug, the first silence without bars around it. Then it snaps back to the cell, the hallway, the officer's voice, the reminder that nothing is real until it happens. At Pelican Bay, distance makes release feel even more severe. This is not a prison in the center of a major city, where a person can step out and disappear into traffic. The geography itself feels like part of the sentence. The roads are long. The weather can be cold and gray. Families may travel hours to reach the area. Some men have no one waiting at all. The outside world may begin not with celebration, but with a bus route, a ride arranged by the state, a phone call, a motel room, a shelter referral, or a long journey back to a county that feels unfamiliar after years away. The prison may release the body at the gate, but the first problem begins immediately after. Where does he go? Who answers the phone? Is the address still valid? Is the family ready? Is there housing? Is there work? Is there identification? Is there medication? Is there anyone who understands what it means to leave a place like Pelican Bay and suddenly be expected to function like a normal citizen? The release process is supposed to prepare for these questions, but preparation on paper is not the same as stability in real life. Inside the final processing area, the tone remains administrative. Names, numbers, property, instructions, conditions, signatures. The man being released may be asked to confirm information he has repeated many times before. He may be handed clothing. He may exchange prison-issued items. He may receive documents that now become more important than anything he carried in his cell. There is a strange transformation in these moments. For years, the institution has defined him by custody, housing unit, classification, identification number, movement status, security level, disciplinary history, scheduled counts, authorized locations. Now the system begins to convert him into a release case, not fully free, not fully outside, no longer just an inmate, but not yet settled as a returning citizen. He stands in the middle of two worlds, and both of them have rules. The officers have seen this before. To them, release is routine. It happens by procedure. It is work that must be done correctly. There may be no speeches, no emotional recognition, no sense that a life is changing. That emotional distance is part of the institution. Prisons are not designed to absorb the weight of every person's story. They are designed to process bodies through systems. But to the man waiting, every ordinary action can feel enormous. A door opening, a document being placed on a counter, a bag being handed over, a name called, a final instruction repeated, a hallway he has walked before now meaning something different. Still, even at this point, the prison does not give him the comfort of certainty. Not until the final step. Not until the last boundary. Not until the last locked point is behind him. And this is where the title becomes darker than it first appears. The final hours in Pelican Bay are not only about leaving prison, they are about realizing how much of prison may leave with him. A man can walk toward release with perfect behavior, correct paperwork, and a legal date that says his time is over. But years of confinement do not end on schedule. The body may keep the prison's clock. The mind may keep the prison's warnings. The eyes may keep searching corners. The ears may keep waiting for commands. The hands may still treat every object like property that can be taken. The voice may stay low. The posture may stay guarded. The nervous system may not understand that the danger has changed. Outside, people may expect relief. Inside, the man may feel something closer to shock. Because the last door does not just open into freedom. It opens into noise, responsibility, uncertainty, supervision, memory, and a world that continued without him. And before that door opens, before the road appears, before the prison begins to shrink behind him, there is one final truth hidden in the release process. The state can calculate the end of a sentence, but it cannot calculate what prison has done to the person walking out. By the time release processing begins, the prison has already done something most people outside never notice. It has trained a person to wait for permission. Permission to wake up under count, permission to move through a door, permission to stand in line, permission to receive a tray, permission to speak at the right volume, at the right time, to the right person. Permission to exist inside a schedule built by someone else. That is why the release process can feel so strange. The same system that controlled nearly every movement is now preparing to send a man into a world where he must make decisions again. And for someone who has lived for years inside custody, decision-making is not always freedom. Sometimes at first, it feels like danger. Inside Pelican Bay, nothing about the final day belongs entirely to the person leaving. The schedule still belongs to the institution. The officers still control movement. The paperwork still controls timing. The count still matters. The doors still open only from the other side. Even release has a chain of command. Before a person can leave, the prison has to confirm who he is, why he is leaving, what sentence has been served, whether any legal holds remain, whether supervision applies, whether transportation is arranged, and whether the release instructions are complete. To outsiders, these sound like routine checks. Inside the prison, they are the difference between walking out and staying behind. A single unresolved issue can stop everything. A missing order, a record that needs confirmation, a detainer from another agency, a disciplinary matter, a change in release calculation, an address problem, a transportation issue, a supervision condition that has not been clearly processed. Most people imagine the release date is fixed, like a number on a calendar, but inside the system, that date is only as real as the paperwork supporting it. And the person waiting knows this. He may not know every rule, but he understands the power of delay. Prison teaches men that the system does not have to explain itself in a way that feels human. It only has to follow procedure. That procedure may be correct, but it can still feel cold. It can still leave a man standing in a holding area with his property bag nearby, wondering whether the outside world is minutes away or suddenly farther than it was yesterday. This is one of the quiet pressures of the final hours. The man is close enough to imagine leaving, but still powerless enough to be stopped. Around him, the prison continues. Other men remain in cells, officers continue rounds, meals move through the housing units, count clears, radios crackle, doors close. Life inside the institution does not pause to honor the fact that one person is leaving it. The routine is stronger than the individual. That routine is part of Pelican Bay's identity. The prison was built for control at the edge of the state, physically distant from California's major cities and emotionally distant from the lives most viewers know. Its location matters. Isolation is not only architectural, it is geographic. Families have to travel far. Lawyers, advocates, and visitors have to make the journey. The distance itself becomes a pressure point. For years, that distance has shaped how people experience confinement there. When someone is released from a prison like this, the first act of freedom may be leaving the area itself. But leaving the prison grounds does not mean leaving the habits built inside them. In the final hours, the man may begin to notice things differently. The sound of shoes on the floor, the smell of disinfectant, the weight of the property in his hands, the stiffness in his body, the way officers speak in short instructions, the way every movement still feels observed. He may tell himself to stay calm. He may remind himself not to react too quickly, not to look too excited, not to show fear, not to show weakness, not to let hope get ahead of the process. In prison, emotional discipline is not just personality, it is survival. And release can test that discipline more than punishment does, because punishment is familiar. Freedom is not. For years, the person inside may have dreamed about small things: a real bed, a private bathroom, food that was not served on schedule, a door he could open himself, a phone call without the same restrictions, a road without fences on both sides. These dreams may have helped him survive, but when the day arrives, those same dreams become questions. What if the family has changed? What if the home is gone? What if the world outside has moved too fast? What if freedom feels unfamiliar? What if the person he was before prison no longer exists? The release process does not answer those questions. It records information. It gives instructions. It returns property. It explains conditions. It moves the person from one status to another, but it cannot rebuild time. It cannot restore trust. It cannot teach someone in a single morning how to live after years of being managed by a locked environment. This is where reentry begins before the gate. The first challenge is not employment, housing, or transportation, even though all of those can become urgent within hours. The first challenge is psychological. The man must begin to understand that the outside world is no longer an idea. It is no longer a memory. It is no longer something imagined during count, during lockdown, during the slow hours of night. It is about to become immediate. And immediate freedom can feel overwhelming. For people leaving long-term confinement, ordinary public spaces can become stressful. A bus station can feel too open. A grocery store can feel too crowded. A family gathering can feel too loud. A smartphone can feel complicated. Traffic can feel chaotic. Silence can feel suspicious. Kindness can feel difficult to trust. These are not dramatic moments in the way movies show them. They are small, private collisions between the habits of custody and the demands of normal life. A man may step outside and struggle with eye contact. He may speak too quietly or too sharply. He may stand with his back to a wall without thinking. He may wake up at times shaped by prison routine. He may keep his possessions close. He may feel anxious when someone walks behind him. He may find himself waiting for instructions, even when no one is giving them. The system can release him from the prison, but it cannot instantly release him from prison behavior. Inside the final administrative steps, the language stays formal. The prison does not speak in emotion, it speaks in status. Release, discharge, parole, supervision, transportation, identification, reporting requirements, violation, compliance. Those words become the bridge between custody and reentry. If the man is released to parole or community supervision, the outside world begins with conditions. He may have to report quickly. He may have limits on travel. He may have rules about who he can contact, where he can live, what programs he must attend, and what appointments he cannot miss. Depending on the case, there may be drug testing, curfews, employment expectations, treatment referrals, or check-ins. To someone who has never been through it, these conditions may seem reasonable and straightforward. To someone leaving prison after years inside, they can feel like another version of surveillance. This is the contradiction at the center of release. The system wants reintegration, but reintegration begins under watch. The person is told to rebuild a life while proving he can be trusted. He is told to become stable while facing barriers that can destabilize him immediately. He may need a job, but he has a record. He may need housing, but housing may reject him. He may need family support, but family relationships may be damaged. He may need identification, transportation, medication, and a phone, but every missing piece can create a new problem. The first day outside can become a test with no practice round. And for someone leaving Pelican Bay, That test begins after a long history of being controlled by one of the most secure environments in the state. This is why the final hours matter. They are not just clerical, they are a fragile transfer of responsibility. The prison is handing the person back to society, but society may not be ready to receive him. The man is being told to move forward, but part of him may still be locked to the routines behind him. The gate becomes less like a finish line and more like a border crossing between two difficult worlds. Inside the housing unit, the men who remain know this. They may not say it, but they understand. They have seen release before. Some have watched men leave with confidence. Some have watched men leave with nothing. Some have heard later that a person returned. Some have learned not to believe in endings too easily. In prison, a release date can become a kind of silence. No one wants to say too much. No one wants to jinx it. No one wants to reveal envy. No one wants to admit fear. A man leaving may keep his emotions locked down because the environment still demands control. He may give a few quiet goodbyes. He may avoid certain conversations. He may leave behind items he cannot take or no longer needs. He may carry addresses folded so many times the paper is soft at the creases. Every object becomes symbolic. A pair of outside clothes, a document, a small amount of money, a number to call, a photograph, a bus ticket, a release packet, a property bag. Compared to the world outside, it is almost nothing. Compared to a prison cell, it can feel like everything. But even as the man prepares to leave, there is another side of the release process that carries tension. The prison must protect order. Movement has to be controlled. Other inmates may be locked down, restricted, or separated depending on the unit and routine. Staff have to prevent confusion. The release cannot become a disruption. The institution's priority is not the emotional weight of the moment. The priority is security. That difference matters. For the man leaving, this may be one of the biggest days of his life. For the prison, it is a procedure that must be completed without incident. The more serious the facility, the more controlled the exit feels. A person does not simply wander toward freedom. He is escorted through spaces that remain locked, watched, and regulated. The same doors that once moved him deeper into custody now move him outward. Each threshold changes his status slightly, but not completely. He is still inside, still subject to orders, still waiting on the next door. The building forces patience until the end, and patience can feel unbearable when the outside is close. The mind begins to split. One part listens to instructions. Another part imagines the road beyond the fence. One part watches the officer's hands, the paperwork, the door. Another part thinks of family, of food, of air, of the first moment no one is counting him. One part stays trained by prison. Another part tries to remember how to be a person outside it. This split is the hidden drama of the final hours. There may be no shouting, no chase, no violence, no cinematic explosion of emotion. But the pressure is real because everything is internal. The man has to hold himself together at the exact moment his life is about to change. He has to obey the rules of a place he is leaving while preparing for rules he has not yet faced. He has to appear calm while carrying years of consequences in his bosie. And then comes the deeper truth. A prison release is not only about the person leaving. It is also about the system admitting that custody has reached its legal limit. The state has taken the time it was allowed to take. The sentence or a portion of it has been served. The custody status changes, but the effects of that time are not measured by the same clock. A sentence can end on paper, while its impact continues for years. Families may expect gratitude, communities may expect accountability, supervision officers may expect compliance, employers may expect reliability, the person himself may expect relief, but none of those expectations erase what long confinement can do to memory, confidence, communication, and trust. That is why the final hours can be so quiet. They hold too much for ordinary words. A man may be leaving a place known for security, control, isolation, and hard routines. He may be walking away from a prison whose name became part of a larger national debate about solitary confinement and the limits of punishment. He may know that men inside Pelican Bay helped force public attention onto conditions many people outside had ignored for years. But his own release will not look historic. It will look like paperwork, a bag, a hallway, an instruction, a door, and that is what makes it powerful. The system's biggest moments often happen without drama. They happen under fluorescent light, in offices, behind counters, through clipped speech and institutional forms. A life shifts direction while the building remains unchanged. Then, near the end of processing, another kind of pressure appears. The question is no longer whether the man will leave. The question is what will happen when he does. Because outside there are no steel doors telling him where to stand. There is no count to structure the day. There is no tray slot marking time. There is no officer deciding every movement. There is no controlled routine to blame when life becomes uncertain. Freedom gives back choice, and choice brings responsibility. For someone who has lived under command, that responsibility can feel almost unreal. The same world that promises possibility also demands immediate performance. Report here, call this number, find this address, meet this deadline, stay away from certain people, follow conditions, do not miss appointments, do not fail before you have even begun. The man may have dreamed of freedom for years, but the first version of freedom he receives is paperwork with consequences. And as the final door gets closer, the most unsettling realization begins to take shape. The prison release process is not designed to answer whether a person is ready. It is designed to determine whether the system is finished holding him. The final door is never just a door. Inside Pelican Bay, it is the last physical line between a man and the world that has been waiting without him. Behind him are counts, cells, searches, steel, controlled movement, and years measured by routine. Ahead of him is open space. But open space does not always feel like mercy. For someone shaped by confinement, it can feel unstable, loud, and impossible to read. This is the deepest truth of release. The prison can end custody in a single administrative act, but it cannot end the consequences of custody in the same moment. By the time a man reaches the last stage of processing, he may already be wearing outside clothes. That change can feel small to anyone else, but inside a prison, clothing carries identity. A prison uniform tells the world where a person belongs, how he is classified, how he will be moved, and how he will be seen. Outside clothes remove that visible mark, but they do not remove the habits built underneath it. He may look like a free man before he feels like one. The property bag in his hand may contain only a few things: papers, letters, approved belongings, maybe photographs, maybe legal documents, maybe items that survived years of searches, transfers, and cell moves. It is not much compared to a life outside, but in custody, possessions become memory. They are proof that a person was not completely erased by the system. Every item has passed through control. Every item has been counted, approved, denied, stored, replaced, or carried through years of institutional living. And now, those small belongings are handed back as if they are enough to rebuild a life. Outside the prison, the world does not wait patiently for anyone to catch up. Technology changes, families change, cities change, prices change, children grow up, parents get older, friends disappear, neighborhoods look different, even language shifts. A person can leave prison and feel like he has stepped into a place that remembers him less than he remembers it. That feeling can begin before he even reaches the main road. The first sounds outside may be ordinary: wind moving through trees, a vehicle engine, tires on pavement, a distant voice without the echo of concrete around it. But ordinary sound can feel strange after years of institutional noise. In prison, sound has meaning. A door means movement. Keys mean staff. A radio means instruction. A shout may mean danger. Silence may mean something is wrong. Outside, sound is less controlled. That freedom can be disorienting. The man may look at the sky differently, not through a narrow window, not through fencing, not from a yard with walls close enough to remind him where he is. He may feel cold air without a schedule attached to it. He may see distance without permission. For a moment, the body knows something the mind is still trying to understand. No one is telling him to turn back. But the absence of command does not immediately create peace. A person leaving prison often has to carry two lives at once. One life is legal and practical: report to supervision, find transportation, reach housing, contact family, protect paperwork, follow instructions. The other life is invisible: manage fear, manage memory, manage shame, manage hope, manage the sudden shock of being seen as a person again. Both lives begin at the gate, and both can fail in small ways: a missed bus, a dead phone, a wrong address, a family argument, a supervision appointment misunderstood, a night without stable housing. a job application rejected before the interview begins. These are not dramatic failures, but they can become turning points. Reentry is often shaped by ordinary obstacles that arrive too quickly for someone still adjusting to freedom. That is why the release packet matters. It is not just paper. It is the first map of the new world. It tells him where to go, what rules still follow him, what deadlines he must meet, what support may exist, and what consequences can return him to custody. But paper cannot make transportation appear. Paper cannot repair a broken family. Paper cannot guarantee housing. Paper cannot slow down a world that expects him to adapt immediately. The system may call this reentry. For the person living it, it can feel like being dropped into motion. At Pelican Bay, the contrast is sharper because the prison itself represents extreme distance and control. Its remote location, its history, and its high security purpose all shape the meaning of release. A man does not simply leave a building. He leaves an environment built to reduce uncertainty by controlling almost everything. Then he enters a society where uncertainty is everywhere. Inside prison, the day is narrow but predictable. Outside, the day is open but unstable. Inside, rules are harsh but visible. Outside, rules can be hidden. Inside, failure is punished by the institution. Outside, failure may come through homelessness, unemployment, isolation, relapse, technical violations, or the quiet collapse of support. Freedom is not always gentle, and the people waiting for a released person may not fully understand this. A family may imagine relief, gratitude, and reunion. They may expect the person leaving to be happy, humble, focused, and ready to begin again. They may not understand why he is quiet in the car, why he watches the road more than he speaks, why a crowded restaurant feels unbearable, why he struggles to sleep in a room with the door closed or open, why he keeps checking where his belongings are. They may think prison ended at the gate, but for him, prison may still be operating inside his nervous system. This is one of the hidden costs of long confinement. It teaches caution so deeply that caution becomes automatic. It teaches people to read faces quickly, to avoid appearing too relaxed, to control emotion, to protect space, to distrust sudden movement, to expect consequences from small mistakes. Those habits can help someone survive inside. Outside, they can damage relationships, employment, parenting, and trust. The skill that protected him in prison can become the behavior that isolates him in freedom. That is the contradiction no release form can solve. The man leading Pelican Bay may carry accountability for his past. The harm that brought many people into prison is real. The consequences are real. Victims, families, and communities matter. A serious documentary cannot pretend release erases responsibility, but it also cannot ignore another reality. If society expects people to return, then the return itself becomes a test of whether punishment has any path beyond containment. A prison can hold someone, but eventually, many people come back. The question is, what kind of person the system sends back, and what kind of world receives them? The final hours expose that question with brutal simplicity. After all the years, all the rules, all the confinement, all the restrictions, all the paperwork, the outcome narrows to one human being stepping into one uncertain day. There is no dramatic music in real life, no perfect ending, no guarantee that the first breath outside will feel like freedom. Just a man, a road, a packet of instructions, and the weight of everything that came before. For some, there is family waiting. That moment can be powerful, but it can also be awkward. People who love each other may have become strangers through time. A hug may carry joy, guilt, anger, relief, and fear, all at once. The person leaving may not know how long to hold on. The person waiting may not know what to say. Everyone may be trying to act normal in a situation that is not normal at all. For others, there is no one. No car waiting, no familiar face, no celebration. Just transport, instructions, and the need to reach the next place. That kind of release is quieter, but it may be even more revealing. It shows how thin the line can be between legal freedom and practical abandonment. A person may be officially released and still have nowhere stable to land. That is where reentry becomes more than a policy word. It becomes food, shelter, identification, medicine, phone access, transportation, employment, mental health care, family repair, and supervision compliance. It becomes a race against pressure. The first days can decide whether freedom begins to take shape or begins to collapse. The public often sees prison release through two simple images. One image is redemption. A person walks out, changes his life, reunites with family, and never returns. The other is fear. A person walks out and society wonders what he will do next. But the truth is more complicated than both. Most release stories are built from smaller realities: anxiety, paperwork, transportation, silence, embarrassment, hope, confusion, pressure, ordinary choices that carry extraordinary weight. A man may be free and still not know where to put his hands. He may be free and still ask before doing something simple. He may be free and still eat too fast, sleep too lightly, speak too carefully, or stand too close to the wall. He may be free and still feel watched. The final hours at Pelican Bay reveal that release is not the opposite of prison. Release is the point where prison meets the outside world. It is where the institution's control becomes the individual's burden. It is where a sentence becomes a memory, and memory becomes behavior. It is where the state says custody has ended, while the person leaving begins the much harder work of becoming human in public again. That work is invisible to most people. They will not see the first night when sleep does not come easily. They will not see the first time he walks into a store and feels overwhelmed by choices. They will not see the first appointment where missing one document can create panic. They will not see the first family conversation that turns into silence because no one knows how to cross the distance created by years apart. They will not see the moment he realizes freedom is not a feeling. It is a responsibility he has to survive. And still, there is something powerful in the act of walking out. Not because it solves everything, not because it makes the past disappear, not because it promises success, but because it creates a narrow opening where a different future becomes possible. That possibility is fragile. It can be damaged by poverty, rejection, untreated trauma, bad decisions, unstable housing, or a system more prepared to punish failure than support transition. But it exists, and the world becomes possible again. For a man leaving Pelican Bay, that possibility may arrive under a gray sky, on a remote road, with a bag in his hand and instructions he cannot afford to misunderstand. Behind him, the prison remains exactly where it was: fences, towers, steel doors, housing units, records, routines, and men still waiting for their own dates. Ahead of him, nothing is guaranteed. That is the part that lingers. Prison is built on certainty, release is built on uncertainty. Inside, the consequences are immediate and controlled. Outside, they are scattered across days, weeks, and choices. Inside, a man is watched because he is confined. Outside, he may feel watched because he is trying not to fail. The final hours do not end when the gate closes behind him. They follow him into the first car ride, into the first meal, into the first phone call, into the first night, into every moment where he has to remind himself that the door is not locked anymore. And maybe that is the real story behind prison release. It is not the moment a man walks away from Pelican Bay. It is the moment he realizes that leaving prison is only the first part of getting out. Some gates open only once, but their shadow can follow a man for the rest of his life. If this story stayed with you, hit subscribe, leave a like, and comment below, because some prison gates open, but their shadows never really leave.